It's really good, isn't it? Thinking for 1 hour about the Buddha. And immediately the mind is uplifted, happy, confident, joyful. And if we recollect the Buddha, we are implicitly also recollecting his qualities, his virtues, his abilities, his wisdom and compassion and samadhi and equanimity and mindfulness and energy. We recollect the Buddha and we indirectly connect with his qualities, what we admire, what we worship, what we respect. Now that is what our mind will incline towards. So the more we remember and recollect the Buddha, at least if we understand what Buddha means and what qualities he actually had, then naturally our mind will start developing and aspiring to these very qualities. At noon we have been talking about Zambodi, the attainment of supreme awakening under the Bodhi tree. And after the invitation from Brahmasahampati, the Buddha decided to open the doors to the deathless and to drum the sound of the deathless, the invitation for everyone to free themselves from old age, sickness, death, from war, and new rebirth and all suffering. He continued teaching that for 45 years. And usually from the end of the Katina season, when it's the cold season in India, he would start walking, and he would walk all over the Ganges Valley, so that a maximum number of human beings would be able to be released from death and suffering, sharing the Dhamma out of great compassion. And even the rainy season retreat, he would usually spend in all kinds of different places, again to maximize opportunities for people to meet him. Of course, the Devas would also meet him. He's not just teacher of humans, but in sheer numbers he would have taught more spirits, Devas, Yakas, Nagas, Brahmas and so on, of all kinds. But they can easily meet him, it doesn't matter so much where he is. But to maximize for the humans, he would move around. However, as he became older, it became more difficult to do that. And then he started settling down at the last 25 Vasa, Pansa, rainy season retreats. He all spent in Savatthi, both in the Jetavana offered by Anathapindika, and in the Poparama, the eastern monastery offered by Lady Visakha. But then very interestingly we find that the last rainy season retreat, before his passing, he went to a different place. He went to the capital of the Vatrian Republic, where the Licchavis lived. And I think one reason is that he wanted to show once more the qualities of someone who is truly homeless. Before his passing, although he was old and had some health problems, a bad back, and he forwent the comfort and rather gave the teaching that one can not hold on to anything, that one can never settle in. I always like to say, when people, so many here of us are immigrants and dealing with visas and getting your visa approved and then getting the permanent residence. That's a big one for Australia, once you've got the permanent residence. But there is no permanent residence in Australia. There's no permanent residence in Thailand or Sri Lanka or Germany or anywhere we're all on a temporary visa on planet Earth. And the Buddha wanted to drive that point home. The other thing, actually very fascinating, as we have quite a bit of war coverage going on in all the media. When he visited Vajragaha, after the teaching of the Samanya-Pala Sutta, the king in Vajragaha, Ajatasattu, had become a disciple of the Buddha. And that is despite the fact that he had actually committed one of the most serious crimes. He had killed, murdered his own father. To make it even worse, not just doing that, deliberately, intentionally murdering one's own father, parasite, that is one of the Anantarika karma, and it means that the person doing that will be reborn in hell the next lifetime. On top of that, his father, King Bimbisara, was a very virtuous king and even a stream emperor. That made it even worse. And yet also conspired with Devadatta in killing the Buddha. Even so, later he had such bad regrets and guilt and bad conscience that he couldn't sleep anymore. And only after the Buddha taught him a very long sutta did he start feeling a little bit better and being able to sleep again, and he became a devoted disciple of the Buddha. He's the one who later organized the first council after the Buddha's passing, and when they collected all the scriptures. However, one can see that he obviously has his limitations even after formally taking refuge and nominally becoming a disciple of the Buddha, and he still had lots of hatred and anger, and he wanted to attack the Vajrayan Republic, which is just north of the Ganges. The Ganges is the border between his kingdom, Magadha, and then the Vajrayan Republic to the north of the Ganges. And he's actually sending one of his ministers to the Buddha and have him announce to the Buddha, King Ajatasattu speaks thus: I will conquer the Vajrayans, I will defeat the Vajrayans, I will destroy them and eliminate them. This is a message he's sending to the Buddha, and it's pretty weird. Probably hoping that the Buddha somehow gives him advice how to do that. We can see now that due to the bad karma, he didn't have a very good understanding of the Dhamma. And the Buddha immediately was countering that by asking Venerable Ananda if the Vajrayans are keeping the 10 things the Buddha taught him, which would be for their long-term benefit and welfare, basically being virtuous and diligent, keeping the old Vajrayan traditions and so on, looking after Arahants. And Venerable Ananda explains that they're actually keeping all of that. And then this minister sent by the evil king is coming to the conclusion that right now they cannot really conquer them because they're too strong, they're following the teaching of the Buddha that makes them too powerful, too much good karma. And he decides not to only try to send his spies in and do a little bit like a color revolution, as they call it, to undermine them internally, so that the government, due to his spies and his subversive activities, collapses. And guess where the Buddha is spending the last rains retreat? Exactly with the Vajrayans, the country which is in danger of being attacked by this powerful king. It's actually quite fascinating, and I'm pretty sure the Buddha also wanted to support them and protect them. Because if he is staying there, and if he is spending the last rains retreat, that gives them strength and encouragement. So I think it was also an act of compassion to this country, which was in danger of being attacked by a king who was ultimately was actually bigger, the country, and more powerful. That's maybe quite a timely reminder. What also strikes me those days, it was just as evil as it gets, and he had killed his father, committed the worst crime. Now he just says, I want to conquer this country, not just out of hatred and jealousy and to get all their possessions, but at least it was honest. Everyone knew what is happening. They all understood this is this king who killed his father and now he's just trying to expand his power. At least it was honest, whereas nowadays when you have a war, each side will claim that they are the good guys and that they don't want war and that they are only forced to do it and that the others are the evil guys. Those days it was at least honest, though evil, whereas nowadays it's evil and deceptive and hidden and done with a lot of deceit and propaganda. But fascinating, so the Buddha goes deliberately to spend his last rains retreat. In my opinion, one reason to show that he is a truly homeless one as a last teaching. And secondly, he goes to the country which is in danger of being attacked by a more powerful but evil king. And in this last rains retreat, the Buddha becomes very sick. In fact, he becomes so sick that he would have naturally passed away. However, because it was a rains retreat, now the monks are obliged, they have to stay in one place and they have taken residence in all kinds of different locations. It wouldn't really be possible for him to do much teaching. He couldn't really give any last encouragement. So the Buddha uses his tremendous mental power and simply artificially extends his lifespan. So he already, again out of compassion, after teaching 45 years and walking all over the Ganges Valley, and he is completely at ease, passing away, and he's not clinging to life. He's quite happy actually to experience the Nibbana element without remainder, Parinibbāna. However, out of pure compassion that he can spend a few more months giving last instructions, and he deliberately extends his lifespan artificially through the strength of his mind, based on the Ayu Sankhara. And that carries him until the next Vesak. And then he continues after the Vasa, after he has recovered, to walk around and to teach. And he encourages every time when he teaches that sila, virtue, keeping the precepts, is a basis that allows us to develop samadhi. And samadhi, the four jhanas, is what allows us to develop really profound wisdom. And developing really profound wisdom means that the heart will be very released from all defilements and experience freedom. There's a threefold training, the hammering that point wherever he goes. It starts with virtue. No shortcutting. We have to keep the precepts. We have to interact with other beings based on kindness and compassion and be devoted to total uncompromising non-violence and non-harming. Keeping the 5 precepts in lay life and keeping the Patimokha Sila for those who are ordained. And then we have to develop samadhi. We talked about at noon how crucial that insight was for the Bodhisattva, discovering the middle way. And the middle way is actually the happiness and bliss of samadhi. Avoiding useless self-torture and avoiding, on the other hand, sensual indulgence. And the middle way of developing the rapture, bliss and happiness, which is neither unwholesome nor connected with sensuality. So we have to develop samadhi, no shortcut, no leapfrogging possible. And based on samadhi, the wisdom will be profound, so that the heart can be fully freed by that powerful wisdom from all defilements. That's the point he constantly makes. And the other point, as the Buddha now understands, and everyone understands, and he will not be around much longer. So he encouraged us, the monks, atta dipa viharata, atta sadhana ananya sadhana, dhamma dipa dhamma sadhana ananya sadhana. This is particularly relevant for us who don't have the direct guidance of the Buddha anymore. We can't go to the Buddha himself anymore, cannot get inspired by a living Buddha. So what do we have to do? We have to live with ourselves as refuge, with ourselves as an island, with no other island. We have to live with the Dhamma as a refuge, with the Dhamma as an island, with no other refuge. So although the Buddha is gone, the Dhamma which he has taught is still with us. And the collection of the scriptures and the teaching of the great disciples of the Buddha is available in many languages. The forest edition is still available, the infrastructure. So we have to rely on Dhamma and on ourselves to diligently practice. So the Buddha continues wandering at the Kesariya, where we now have the Kesariya stupa. He gives up his bowl because now people understand very soon is a Parinibbāna. By now the Buddha has set a date. He has let go of the Arya Sankhara and determined that on the Vesākhā Full Moon will be his Parinibbāna, and everyone knows it. So whenever they see the Buddha, they find it very difficult to let go of him. And in Kesariya, they are so disappointed and they continue walking with him until the river he has to cross. He leaves the bowl behind as a memento for them. And again, also another teaching. That is a bowl he got from the Devas when he got his first meal offered. Because before Zambodi had put the bowl into the river Ganges, and he had determined, if I can attain Samma Zambodi, may this bowl float upstream. Of course, normally anything you put into the water will float downstream. But of course the bowl floated upstream. When it finally sank, it was taken by one of the Nagas as a relic. And then the Buddha attained Samma Zambodi, and when he had done that, he didn't have a bowl. So when the first meal was offered by the merchants, he didn't have a bowl to accept it. And the 4 great kings came and they gave him 4 bowls made of stone, and the Buddha put them all together in one. And that's the bowl which he used his whole life. And again, a powerful teaching. Just shortly before Parinibbāna, this very special bowl which he used all his life, and he just gave it away. And we can still see the Kesariya stupa, where that was originally enshrined, one of the biggest stupas, now only in ruins, but still an inspiring place. And of course, setting the bowl in water is also a simile, it's a metaphor. What is a metaphor of the bowl going upstream? Yeah? With a stream. Exactly. Now, to practice the Dhamma, we have to go against the stream. And the stream is craving. Tanha, the cause of suffering. That is a simile the Buddha often gives. It's like this powerful stream pulling us all along. If we want to get free from that, then we have to go against the stream of craving, against the stream of sensuality, against the stream of the defilements flushing us along. And then he approaches Kusinara. He takes his last meal. He talked about Lady Sujata offering the very special meal on the day of Summer Zambodi. And now the other meal, which is just as powerful in terms of good karma, the last meal before Parinibbāna. There was Chunda the goldsmith. And shortly after he has taken the meal in Chunda's home, the Buddha becomes very sick. In fact, he has diarrhea, he has bloody diarrhea, he's dehydrated, he is very thirsty, he has got racking, painful feelings through his whole body. And still, in the hot season, this is in May, if you have ever been in India, and at that time, it's usually over 40 degrees every day, and parched and dry, and the sun burning, and now very sick, and he's still walking. So he's a true homeless one. He was sleeping in one place, and then he would walk and take the meal where Chunda lived, and he would have the meal there, and then he would walk all afternoon, and he would lie down and then in another place, and he would pass away. He didn't have his bowl anymore. He hadn't spent the last rains retreat in the capital, and where he spent all the time, and where all the richest and closest supporters were, giving us a teaching of true homelessness, giving us a teaching that no sankhara will last, that anything we attach to is an obstruction, and we have to give it away. And he's showing and documenting that so that we can see it. The Buddha's mind was free anyhow. He's not attached to his bowl or to any monastery, but he's doing that as a teaching for us, that we can see even in his external actions that he doesn't hold on to absolutely anything. And then they put up the bed for the Buddha to lie down between the twin sal trees. And they say, although it is out of season, that these sal trees were flowering. And they put the bed with the head pointing north. So when the Buddha is lying on the right side, as is his habit, as you can see in the reclining posture Buddha statues, now on the right side, so he would be facing west. Normally the Buddha's habit is always facing east. When you go to Bodh Gaya, you can see that in front of the Bodhi tree towards the east. And he would always sit facing east, and that is a traditional position. If you want to place a Buddha statue very traditionally, the Buddha statue should be facing east, to the rising sun. But now for Parinibbāna, as he's lying, he's actually facing the setting sun. He's facing west, with the head to the north. And they say that the sal trees, out of season, would cover the body of the Tathagata with the flower petals, doing their worship, even thus being trees. And they say that the devas from 10 world systems would assemble, and they would scatter the heavenly flowers over the body of the Tathagata to worship him a last time. In fact, one monk is sitting and fanning the Buddha, again very hot, and the Buddha is sick, sitting and fanning him. And suddenly the Buddha asks him, "Could you please go away, go to the side?" Venerable Ananda is concerned that this monk, in the last moment, he is sent away, and he asks why. And the Buddha explains that there is not a place big enough that you could put a needle anywhere, which is not pervaded by powerful devas and spirits which have come together from 10 world systems, and they're complaining. Last chance to look at the Tathagata, and this big monk is sitting in front and fanning him. We can't see him. So out of compassion for the devas who wanted to see him, now the Buddha asked them to step aside. And then Venerable Ananda get all the mallas to pay last respects to the Buddha, and that takes quite some time. And they are crying and weeping. And even those monks who are only stream enterers but who have not yet realized non-return and arahantship, Even they are crying that they're losing the Buddha. And even Venerable Ananda starts crying. And the Buddha calls him, and although he is the one who has got the pain and he is the one who is passing away, he is actually out of compassion consoling Venerable Ananda. And by doing that, consoling everyone. And he reminds them that all formations are impermanent, and what else is to be expected? Anything that is conditioned, any human body, even the body of a Buddha, will come to an end, will pass away, and when we are attached to that, then we will suffer. And when we let go, then we will be free from suffering. So even the body of the Lord Buddha, where the Devas came from 10 world systems to see it the last time, even that special Buddha body with the 32 marks of a Superman, if even that body didn't last more than 80 years, what are the chances that your body is going to last forever? Do you think you have any chance? Oh, no. So what do you do with this body? You let go, exactly. That's the only real solution to the problems of the body. You can give it medicine and so on, you can look after it, feed it, bathe it, massage it, care for it. It will still die one day. The only thing that really helps is letting go. And then quite fascinating, also the Buddha, not as a supreme spiritual teacher, but also the supreme manager of the Sangha, because he is a pioneer, he is a founder. He founded the organization, institution, corporation, which has lasted longer than any other association or corporation or institution in human history. There's no other institution, to the best of my knowledge, which has lasted continuously under the same rules and constitution for 2,500 years, like the Bhikkhu Sangha, completely unique. And the Buddha started that and managing it. And if you've seen it like Ajahn Chah and or the other great monks, Lungpo Liem, apart from the spiritual teaching, they're also managing all these monasteries, managing the Sangha, and showing wisdom and great skill in that. And you see it with the Buddha, tying up loose ends up to the last moment. How to deal with women, to be very restrained. Last instructions to one ascetic who takes the last chance to get personal teaching from the Buddha. Whenever Anna wants to send him away and is saying, the Buddha is attaining Parinibbāna, maybe better not to disturb him. And the Buddha compassionately calling him in, teaching him, and he becomes the last personal disciple of the Buddha, practicing and quickly attaining arahantship, giving last regulations that after the passing, the monks should address more senior monks as Bhante, and the more junior monks as Avoso, and be very diligent in practicing according to the seniority principles, so that the Sangha can still function well without the Buddha organizing it all. And then finally, when everything is sorted, last loose ends are tied up, everyone who is crying has been consoled. The Devas are happy that they could see him, Venerable Ananda receiving last teachings. And now the last words of the Buddha. And of course, the Buddha very mindfully and in full awareness that this will be recorded as his last words. They will choose them very carefully. What are the last words? Do you all know? It's good to know that one. Andadani bhikkhave amantayami vo vayadhamma sankhara appamadena sampadeta. Now, monks, I admonish you, all sankharas are subject to destructions, all conditioned phenomena. They will not last, they will end, they will vanish. They are all impermanent. Anything that's conditioned is impermanent. Therefore, practice diligently, accomplish with heedfulness. Don't be negligent, but practice the teaching the Buddha has given them. That's the last instruction. All conditioned phenomena are impermanent. So strive unrelentingly to free yourself from conditioned phenomena by letting go, by seeing them, by understanding them wisely as ultimately being disappointing, as not having the qualities of a true self, as being counterproductive to hang on as me and mine, as impermanent, unstable, unreliable, so that the heart can let go. Now finally the Buddha can look a little bit after himself. Before that, not only looking after others, last teachings, last encouragements, total compassion to the very last moments till he passes away. And what does he do now? Just before Parinibbāna? Exactly, just like the jhana samadhi was so important right before Zambodi, before enlightenment. Now before he attains Parinibbāna, he goes through all the samadhis. Attains the first jhana, second, third, fourth jhana. Then the formless attainments, the peaceful abidings, also known as arupa jhana, until the cessation of perception and feeling, sanya veda yata nirodha, the most profound state of a combination of samadhi and insight. And at that moment, he looks like he has passed away already. And Venerable Ananda, who is very close to the Buddha, actually thinks he has passed away. And he says to Venerable Anuruddha, "Oh, the Blessed One has attained Parinibbāna." But Venerable Anuruddha has got these psychic powers, foremost in divine eyesight and seeing the mind of other beings. And he sees that the Buddha is actually in that deep samadhi. And he says, no, he hasn't attained Parinibbāna, he is in cessation of perception and feeling. And the Buddha arises from that and he goes back, arupa jhana, fourth, third, second, first. And then he goes back, second, third, fourth jhana. And then he comes out of fourth jhana. So he doesn't attain Parinibbāna inside any of the jhanas, but coming out and with this peak of mindfulness and clear comprehension and equanimity, which the mind has now just coming out of that jhana, he does attain Parinibbāna. The big earthquake, and Visakha speaking the famous gathas anicca vata sankhara. But my favorite gathas are by Venerable Anuruddha, who is the most outstanding disciple present. The Venerable Ananda is only a stream enterer still at that time, because looking after the Buddha, he didn't have time to really practice. He was a stream enterer, but not an arahant. And he was carried away by grief. He started crying. But Venerable Anuruddha, being an arahant, he remained completely equanimous. And he was watching not the Buddha's body, but because with his psychic powers, he would be watching the Buddha's mind. And that is obviously the most spectacular. It's like an astronomer having the unique chance, maybe seeing a supernova. This is the greatest dream, I think, of many astronomers, that they're lucky that they can actually see and observe that directly. So observing the mind by direct psychic power insight of a Buddha while he attains Parinibbāna, that must be the most spectacular thing you can possibly see. And he's also speaking a gatha. Nahu asasa pasasa titachitasa tadino anejo santing arapa chakuma parinipputo Asalinena cetena vedanang acchavasayi bhajota seva nibbanang vimokho cetaso ahu. There's no more in and out breath of the such one with steadfast mind. Why does he say something so trivial? It sounds a little bit trivial, no more in and out breath, no, obviously not. But the Buddha liked Anapanasati, was his favorite meditation object. And he has stated, if someone develops Anapanasati completely, another result will be that even the last in and out breath will pass mindfully. So my understanding would be, the Buddha probably would have been doing Anapanasati, and he was watching the breath. And this is why Ven Anuruddha mentions it. Now this is what the Buddha was watching himself, most likely. Anedro something varapa chakuma pariniputo, unshaken, imperturbed, and based on the supreme peace, the all-seeing one, the one with supreme vision, has attained Parinibbāna. Asalinena cetena vedanang acchavasayi, with the mind not clinging, not sticking to it, he endured the pain. He endured the Vedana. Because the Buddha was very sick. And the moment he came out of fourth jhana, he would come back into the body and he would feel the pain of the sick body at the moment of dying, which is likely to be quite a strong pain. And again, this is probably also what the Buddha was aware of. And Venerable Anuruddha, watching that with his psychic power and seeing that there's so much pain, but that the Buddha's mind actually wouldn't stick to that, wouldn't identify with it, would be not affected by it, would be disengaged and detached from the pain. This is why he was so peaceful. He looks very peaceful in the Parinibbāna statues, isn't it? But not because he had a painless death. He didn't have a painless death at all. He had a very painful death. Food poisoning or poisonous mushrooms. It's not a death where you just painlessly go. It was intense pain. But the mind is not identified with the pain. The mind feels the pain, but is not clinging to it. The mind experiences the pain, but doesn't regard it as my pain, or I am in pain. The mind is detached. Bhajotas eva nibbānam, just like a flame going out, the well-known simile of the flame of the heat of the defilements, greed, hatred, delusion, going out, was the release of the mind, the freedom, the liberation of the mind. And I really like that last verse in that gatha because it shows that the going out of the flame to the Indian mind doesn't indicate becoming nothing. Because it says the release of the heart, the freedom, the liberation of the heart. In ancient Indian understanding, the fire would normally just cling to the fuel. When the fire goes out, it means that it has abandoned the clinging and it is released. It is freed from the clinging, from sticking to the wick or to the stick, wherever, what it is burning, whatever fuel it depends on, and that it is now released and freed, not becoming annihilated. So like the going out of a flame was the liberation, the release of the heart. That is a release that is available for all of us. This is not typical only for the Buddha. Many great Koba Ajahns have attained the same release, as the same Nibbana. Exactly the same Nibbana the Lord Buddha experienced, you can experience in your own heart. Exactly the same peace and calm, even if your body is in excruciating pain. If you really practice, you can experience the same peace the Buddha had, completely calm, at ease, peaceful, even if the body is racked by pain. If you can do the same letting go, if you can develop the same Eightfold Path, if you can comprehend the Four Noble Truths, if you can go against the stream of defilements and abandon craving, let go of all attachment, and you have that same supreme release of awareness, release of your heart, of your mind, as the Buddha. Okay, that is all the reflections I have on Parinibbāna. And we can maybe end the session by together reciting the unique qualities of the Buddha as he described it himself in Anguttara Nikāya, the direct words of the Buddha, why he is so unique. Please bow 3 times. Annamayang buddhasa bhagavato pupabhaga namakadang karomasi. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. Please repeat after me line by line. There is one person who is arising in the world. Is for the welfare of the multitude. For the happiness of the multitude. Who arises out of compassion for the world. For the good welfare and happiness of gods and humans.
For the good welfare and happiness of gods and humans.
Who is that one person?
It is
the Tathagata. The Arahant. The perfectly enlightened one. There is one person arising in the world. Who is unique. Without a peer. Without counterpart. Beyond comparison. Unequaled. Matchless. Unrivaled. supreme among gods and humans.
Supreme among God and humans.
Who is that one person?
Who is that one person?
It is the Tathagata,
It is the Tathagata,
the Arahant,
the Arahant,
the perfectly enlightened one.
the perfectly enlightened one.
The manifestation of one person
The manifestation of one person
is the manifestation of great vision,
is the manifestation of great vision,
of great light,
of great light,
of great radiance.
of great radiance.
It is the manifestation of 6 things unsurpassed.
It is the manifestation of 6 things unsurpassed.
The realization of the 4 analytical knowledges,
The realization of the 4 analytical knowledges.
the insight into the manifold elements
The insight into the manifold elements
that constitute our universe,
that constitute our universe.
the realization
The realization
of the fruit of knowledge and liberation,
of the fruit and knowledge and liberation.
the realization
The realization
of the fruit of stream entry,
of the fruit of stream entry,
once returning,
once returning,
non-returning,
non-returning,
and enlightenment.
and enlightenment.
Who is that one person?
Who is that one person?
It is the Tathagata,
It is the Tathagata,
the Arahant,
the Arahant,
the perfectly enlightened one.
the perfectly enlightened one.
Please bow 3 times. Okay, we have reached the end of our program, and we finish off by sharing merits with all beings. Page 33 in the chanting book.
Now let us chant the verses of sharing and aspiration.
Through the goodness that arises from my practice, may my spiritual teachers and guides of great virtue, my mother, my father, and my relatives, the sun and the moon, and all virtuous leaders of the world, may the highest gods and evil forces, celestial beings, guardian spirits of the earth, and the Lord of death, may those who are friendly, indifferent, or hostile, may all beings receive the blessings of my life. May they soon attain the threefold bliss and realize the deathless. Through the goodness that arises from my practice, and through this act of sharing, may all desires and attachments quickly cease, and all harmful states of mind, until I realize Nibbana in every kind of birth. May I have an upright mind, with mindfulness and wisdom, austerity and vigor. May the force
causes of delusion not take hold, nor weaken my resolve. The Buddha is my excellent refuge. Unsurpassed is the protection of the Dhamma. The solitary Buddha is my noble Lord. The Sangha is my supreme support. Through the supreme power of all these, may darkness and delusion be dispelled.